No one taught you how to let go of guilt. They taught you how to carry it, to bury it deep in your chest, to pretend it's over, to keep moving as if it didn't hurt, even though it hurts every single day. And the worst part is, you learn to live like that, as if you deserve to suffer, as if making mistakes turned you into someone broken, as if pain were the only just punishment for what you did, or for what you failed to do. But it's not. It's not just. And it's not necessary, because guilt doesn't repair. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't change what you did. It only locks you up. And the longer you live inside that guilt, the more you begin to confuse it with who you are. You no longer know if it hurts because of what you did, or because you don't know how to stop punishing yourself. Many live like this, punishing themselves on the inside while smiling on the outside, eyes firm but soul trembling, unconsciously waiting for someone, anyone, to finally say, "That's enough, you can let it go." But no one says it, no one does it, because the forgiveness you're waiting for can only come from one person, you. This isn't a message to justify your mistakes. It's a message to stop destroying yourself for them, because you weren't born to live in permanent debt with yourself. You came here to learn, to grow, to fall and still rise with dignity. The Stoics knew this well. There's no virtue in guilt that paralyzes, nor courage in pain that doesn't transform. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to blame himself. He wrote to understand himself. Seneca didn't reflect in order to punish himself. He did it to find direction. Epictetus didn't seek punishment, but wisdom in the midst of chaos. This session isn't here to tell you that you didn't fail. It's here to help you stop failing yourself. You won't find hollow comfort here. You'll find real tools, philosophical tools, stoic tools, to stop carrying something that no longer builds you, to finally let go of the emotional whip you've been using against yourself every day. Yes, you made mistakes, but you can also make amends. Yes, you caused pain, but you can also heal. Yes, you failed, but that doesn't mean you have to suffer forever. This is the moment to break the cycle, to stop punishing yourself, to free yourself from guilt that no longer teaches, that only destroys. You're here because you're already ready. Ready to look inward without fear, ready to stop hiding behind pain, ready to start again, not from guilt, but from awareness. This is where your journey begins, not toward forgetting, but toward freedom. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by leaving this comment below. Starting today, I release the guilt that no longer builds me. Let that phrase be your reminder that you're here to heal, not to keep hurting yourself. This is the moment to honor your evolution and give yourself the compassion you always needed. Without further delay, let's begin. First Stoic lesson: punishing yourself doesn't fix the past. Maybe you're still living there, in that moment that fills you with shame, in that conversation you couldn't handle, in that mistake you made without thinking. But haven't stopped thinking about since. The past isn't written only in events. It's written in the way you remember them. And when a memory turns toxic, when it never stops hurting, it's no longer history, it's a prison. Every time you punish yourself for what you did, you give more power to something that no longer exists. You give it permission to govern your present, and by doing so, you give up the only moment that truly belongs to you, now. Some believe punishment is necessary, that if it doesn't hurt, you haven't learned, that if you don't suffer, you don't deserve forgiveness. And so they stay trapped in an endless cycle: guilt, suffering, silence, and more guilt. But that's not learning. That's emotional torture. That's becoming your own enemy. It's like living with a voice in your head constantly saying, "You weren't enough, you messed up, you don't deserve peace." And the hardest part? That voice often isn't even yours. It belongs to those who judged you, to those who pointed fingers, to those who never knew what you were going through, but condemned you as if they were perfect judges. And you believed their verdict. Do you really think hurting yourself inside makes you a better person? That replaying the mistake in your head over and over will erase it? that if you suffer enough, you'll make up for the damage. You won't. Because the past doesn't negotiate. It doesn't change through pain. It only changes through understanding. Seneca said it clearly. We cannot change what has already happened, but we can learn from it to live better. And yet here you are, anchored to a what-if that no longer has meaning, paralyzed by a should've that no one can rewrite. Self-punishment disguises itself as justice, but in reality, it's revenge against yourself. A silent, slow, destructive revenge, one that doesn't stop time, but does stop your growth. It's like trying to pay an emotional debt with your peace, your joy, your present. But no one finds freedom through more pain. You find freedom when you stop going in circles and choose to move forward. Think about this. If a friend came to you, broken over a mistake they made, would you tell them they deserve to suffer forever? That there's no redemption for them? That their pain is their sentence and they have no right to be happy? Then why do you say it to yourself? The Stoics didn't deny mistakes. They didn't justify them either, but they didn't worship them as eternal. They faced them, understood them, and then used them as raw material for growth. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, didn't emotionally beat himself up. He examined himself. He spoke with honesty, yes, but also with compassion. He knew that wisdom doesn't come from self-hatred, but from the will to act better from now on. Epictetus, who knew pain from childhood, didn't dedicate his life to self-pity. He dedicated his life to teaching that we are not what happens to us. We are what we choose to do with it. So ask yourself, how much energy are you wasting on hating yourself? How many opportunities have you rejected because you think you don't deserve them? How many times have you sabotaged yourself because you believe there's no redemption left for you? Punishing yourself is not humility, it's pride in disguise. It's believing that if you suffer enough, everything will balance out. But life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't reward those who crawl, it rewards those who rise. Not because they never fell, but because they dared to rise. Clearer than before. And yes, you failed. So what? Who hasn't? We all make mistakes. What sets you apart is not the mistake, but how you choose to relate to it from this moment on. Maybe you think that if you stop blaming yourself, you're forgetting. That if you stop suffering, you're minimizing the harm. But it's the opposite. Only when you release the guilt can you face the error honestly. Only when you stop hitting yourself can you begin to transform. And if the mistake was real, let your will to make things right be just as real. Not so others will forgive you, but so you can live in peace with yourself. Today is the day you can ask just one question, a question that can change everything. Am I willing to stop punishing myself so I can finally grow? No one can answer it for you, but if you're here reading this, deep down you already know the answer. Second Stoic lesson: a mistake is a teacher, not an executioner. Sometimes it isn't the mistake itself that hurts the most. It's the way you decide to interpret it, because one thing is to stumble, and a completely different thing is to turn that stumble into a lifelong sentence. Some people trip and learn, others trip and drag that stone around their neck for years. What creates the difference? What you do with the error. Whether you turn it into a lesson that strengthens you, or into an executioner that hunts you down. The Stoics never denied that everyone fails. Not even the sages were exempt. Epictetus was blunt. To err is human, but only a fool keeps whipping the error instead of learning from it. For the wise, a mistake is like a battle wound. It isn't denied, it isn't hidden, but it's never used as an excuse to surrender. You observe it, you clean it, you study it, and then you transform it. Yet in the modern world, we've forgotten how to do that. We live pinned between two extremes. Either we justify everything we do with hollow phrases like, nobody's perfect, or we condemn ourselves as if failure were unforgivable. In that absurd dichotomy, we lose the true power of a mistake, its power to teach. Because a mistake, if you allow it, can reveal more about you than any book, any advice, or any triumph. It shows you your limits, your emotional weak spots, your impulses, your unhealed wounds. It reveals the parts of you that still need attention. Not so you can judge them, but so you can work on them. If, however, you react with blind guilt, you see nothing, it just hurts, you just punish, you just run, and what is repressed gets repeated. What is ignored gets infected. What isn't faced with wisdom ends up defining you. That's why this lesson is vital. Stop seeing the mistake as a whip. Start seeing it as a lantern. Yes, it stings, but it sheds light. It illuminates corners of yourself that were shrouded in shadow. And that flash of lucidity, that instant in which you understand what led you to fail, can become a doorway to your best version. The problem is that sometimes you don't want to look. You're afraid of what you'll find, and so you'd rather blame yourself than know yourself, because blaming yourself is automatic. But knowing yourself, that requires courage. Marcus Aurelius knew it. That's why he wrote each night about what he could improve. His impulses, his weaknesses, his inner collapses. He didn't do it to punish himself. He did it to avoid repeating himself. He didn't use a mistake as an excuse to give up. He used it as a compass to act better the next day. That's the difference between living with guilt and living with consciousness. And you, how many times have you wasted the value hidden in your errors? How many times out of shame did you hide, minimize, or deny what happened? How many growth opportunities have you let slip? Because the fear of looking was stronger than your desire to change. You don't need to deny it. You don't need to justify it. You only need to learn from it. But for that, you must accept that you failed, without turning yourself into the failure. You are not that mistake. You are the human being who made it. And you are also the human being who can understand it. And from that understanding, correct it. And from that correction, evolve. A mistake becomes an executioner only if you give it that role. It haunts you only if you refuse to understand it. It weakens you only if you refuse to extract wisdom from it. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it takes work. But no one transforms inside the comfort zone. What humiliates you today can be tomorrow your greatest source of strength. If you choose to examine it with humility and without fear. Life doesn't punish you for failing. It gives you another chance every time you decide to do things differently. That chance doesn't begin when the world forgives you. It begins when you choose to face the mistake without running from it. So stare at it firmly, calmly, with brutal honesty. Ask yourself what led you there, what you ignored, what you didn't want to see, and then, without drama, without shame, without needless guilt, correct. Make the mistake your teacher, not your executioner. Turn that fall into a brand new starting line, not your biography. Make that painful moment the force that taught you never again to abandon your awareness. That's where true Stoic transformation begins. Not in perfection, but in the ability to turn failure into virtue. Your inner freedom starts with one decision. If today you choose to drop the guilt and stop beating yourself up for what you can no longer change, follow us. This space is a refuge for those who want to heal, forgive themselves, and move forward with dignity. Don't keep carrying a burden that no longer belongs to you. Set yourself free. The moment is now. Let's continue. Third Stoic lesson, your identity is not your mistakes. There's a silent trap many fall into after messing up. They begin to define themselves by what they did wrong. You no longer say, I made a mistake. You start saying, I am a mistake. You no longer think, I failed in that moment. You start thinking, this is who I am, someone who ruins everything. And slowly, without realizing it, you let that one moment, a single action, an impulsive decision, a dark hour, become your strongest label. That's how a mistake stops being the past and starts shaping your identity. But you are not that. You never were. It doesn't matter how many times you've repeated it, how much it hurt, or how harshly others have judged you. Your essence is not written in your failures. It's defined by what you choose to do with them. Epictetus said it with clarity. You are not your actions, you are your capacity to respond to them. And that phrase, truly understood, can save your life, because in a world that constantly pushes you to label yourself as a success or a failure, strong or weak, good or bad, Stoicism comes to remind you of something deeper. You are a will in motion, a consciousness in process, a human being in constant transformation. But when you identify with your mistakes, you forget this. You start to act from that distorted self-image. If I'm impatient, then I don't even try to stay calm. If I'm selfish, then I don't deserve forgiveness. If I'm a failure, then what's the point in trying? And so that one mistake, which could have been a chance to grow, becomes a life sentence. A sentence you carry out against yourself every single day. It's a cruel process, because when you define yourself by your flaws, you don't just carry guilt. You rob yourself of growth. You reject new possibilities. You exclude yourself from change. You become a prisoner of a story you keep feeding. But the Stoics knew this. No human being is finished. No one is fully defined. Virtue is not about being perfect. It's about working each day to become wiser, fairer, stronger. And to do that, you must separate your actions from your essence. Marcus Aurelius wrote so he wouldn't get lost in his impulses, so he wouldn't confuse his mistakes with his identity. He understood that every day brought an internal battle between who he was yesterday and who he could become today. That conflict isn't solved with guilt, it's solved with direction. Today, it's your turn to do the same, to break away from the story you've been repeating, from that internal voice whispering, "This is who you are, you can't change, you're stuck." That voice is not your wisdom. It's your fear. It's your wounded ego. It's the echo of other people's judgments, which you've absorbed as if they were truths. But they're not. You are not a category. You are not a list of errors. You are not the worst thing you've done. You are so much more than that. You are also your intentions. You are also your efforts. You are what you chose to learn when no one was watching. You are your ability to face your mistakes and turn them into something new. Don't confuse guilt with identity. Don't confuse a wound with your face. Don't confuse a fall with your fate. Because if you choose to let your mistakes define you, you are giving away your power. And you weren't born to be a slave to your past. You were born to become the architect of your present. This lesson is not about denying what you did. It's about remembering that it's not the only thing you are. And if you can see the mistake, then you can overcome it. If you can admit it with honesty, then you can correct it. If you can feel guilt, then you can also feel dignity. Because both come from the same place, awareness. But only one of them builds you, the other destroys you. Today, you get to choose. You can keep using your mistakes as an excuse to keep falling, or as proof that you're beginning to awaken. You can keep identifying with what you couldn't do, or start seeing yourself as someone who's still learning to do better. Don't define yourself by the pain. Don't define yourself by your lowest moment. Don't define yourself by what you did. When you didn't yet know what you now know, you are not what you did. You are what you do with it from this moment on. And right there is where your true Stoic identity begins. Fourth Stoic lesson: guilt is not responsibility, it's a prison. Taking responsibility is not the same as carrying guilt, but many confuse the two and end up trapped in a prison of their own making. We've been taught that being responsible means we must suffer, that if we admit to a mistake, we have to carry it forever, that if we've hurt someone, we should walk with our head down until the end of our days. But that's not responsibility, that's punishment. And punishment doesn't always correct. Sometimes it just paralyzes. Responsibility is action, it's awareness. It's the decision to look at what you've done without evasion and honestly ask yourself, what can I do with this now? Guilt, on the other hand, is an emotional swamp. It keeps you stuck. It clouds your vision. It traps you in loops of repetitive pain, as if suffering in itself had some kind of moral merit. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to wallow in remorse. He wrote to understand his impulses and overcome them. For him, true virtue wasn't about suffering for what had been done, but about acting better from the present. But when you live in guilt, your present becomes polluted. You no longer decide with freedom, but with fear. You don't act with wisdom, but with shame. You don't repair, you just punish yourself. And when you punish yourself, you often repeat the same mistakes. Because guilt is not a teacher, it's a jailer. And when you lock yourself in that cell, you don't even realize the keys are in your hand. Epictetus taught that true freedom begins in the mind, and there is no greater slavery than believing you don't deserve to be free. That thought, I caused this, so I must pay forever, makes you judge, executioner, and prisoner all at once. It prevents you from correcting because you're frozen in pain. Responsibility, on the other hand, propels you. It demands that you see the truth without drama. It confronts you, yes, but it also lifts you. It demands coherence, but offers direction. That's what the Stoics promoted: real internal change, not useless emotional penance. Some people think that letting go of guilt means being irresponsible, as if ending the suffering meant minimizing the mistake, as if forgiving yourself meant you don't care. But it's exactly the opposite. Only someone who takes wise responsibility can look the past in the eye, can speak clearly, can act without begging for pity. The one who stays in guilt constantly needs compassion. The one who assumes responsibility acts with dignity, and does so from the inner freedom that comes when you stop defining yourself by what happened and start defining yourself by what you do with it. And that difference changes everything, because guilt waits for the world to punish you. Responsibility turns that pain into something useful. So ask yourself sincerely, are you using guilt as an excuse to do nothing? Are you punishing yourself because it's easier than repairing? Are you telling yourself that you deserve to suffer to avoid the hard work of change? Sometimes staying stuck in guilt is more comfortable than moving forward. Because moving forward requires decisions: talking to the person you hurt, apologizing, changing habits, building virtues. That takes courage. That is responsibility. Guilt is passive. Responsibility is active. Guilt keeps staring at the damage. Responsibility looks for ways to heal it. Guilt pulls you backward. Responsibility pushes you forward. One locks you up, the other sets you free. And you can't move forward if every step is tainted by the fear of messing up again, because even if you fail again, you'll do it from a new level of awareness. And that too is part of the journey. Seneca said there is no greater loss than that of time, and nothing consumes more time or more soul than guilt without purpose. Today you can choose to leave that mental prison. You don't have to deny it. You don't have to forget it. You just have to stop clinging to suffering as if it were your only option. You are no longer the person who made that mistake. Today, you are someone who can learn from it. And if you can learn, you can act. And if you can act, you can repair. And if you can repair, you can live in peace. Don't confuse it anymore. It's not guilt that makes you better. It's your responsibility to never choose the same path again. And that starts now. Fifth Stoic lesson: no pain from the past can change the present. It's happened to you, hasn't it? You wake up in peace, but within seconds the memory returns. The one you never asked for, the one you thought was buried, and suddenly your present becomes colored by the past. It doesn't matter what you're doing or how far away you are from that scene. The pain catches up to you, as if it were happening all over again. And there you are again, reliving what you said, what you did, what you lost, and asking yourself for the 100th time, what if? This is one of guilt's most subtle torments. It makes you live outside of time. It steals your now. It traps your mind in a moment you can no longer change, yet one that still shapes how you feel today. And what do you gain from that? Does anything actually change? Can the past be rewritten by your suffering? Can pain be healed by your anguish? Number. The only thing that changes is your present. And it changes for the worse. It becomes polluted, shrunken, paralyzed. Seneca put it with brutal clarity: he who regrets the past loses the present. And there is no greater loss than that, because the past is already written. But the present is the only place where transformation is possible. When you live trapped in what happened, you're not being more aware. You're avoiding responsibility for what you can do now. You're using pain as an excuse not to act, not to heal, not to build. And that is just another form of escape. The Stoics were obsessive about the present, not because they ignored the past, but because they knew that clinging to it was a form of surrender. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about the fleeting nature of time. This moment is your life. What you do now is the only thing within your hands. It wasn't just a pretty phrase. It was a saving truth, because staying anchored to a painful yesterday means surrendering to a defeat that already happened, and losing again by choice. Your pain may have been valid, your mistake real, but your decision to keep drowning in it, that is voluntary. And that's the part that hurts to admit, because looking back over and over again feels like introspection, but it's not. It's avoidance. You're distracting yourself from what matters most, the only moment where you can act, the only moment where you can repair, the only moment where you can choose something different. This one, now, the pain of the past, however intense, has no right to rule your present. It only does so if you let it. It only does so if you stay emotionally tied to it, using it as a shield to avoid change, as a whip to avoid forgiveness, as a wall to avoid moving forward. But pain is not a compass. It doesn't tell you where to go. It only reminds you where you've been. And that, when used well, can be helpful. But if left unchecked, it enslaves you. Epictetus understood this with Stoic wisdom. It's not things that hurt us, but how we interpret them. And every time you relive past pain, you empower it through your current interpretation. You're not remembering, you're reactivating it. And while doing so, you stop living. You stop seeing what's right in front of you. You stop appreciating new opportunities. You stop building the version of yourself who could finally put that burden down. Because the past is over. The pain was real, but it is not eternal, unless you choose it to be. And if you choose it, let it be for learning. Let it be to act with more compassion. Let it be to avoid repeating the same mistakes, but not to sink again. This moment, whether it feels like it or not, is an opportunity to breathe, to see clearly, to let go of the invisible chain you've been tightening around your own neck. And if it hurts to release it, it's only because you've grown used to the pain, not because you need it. The present is not where you're meant to pay for your past. It's where you're meant to transform it. And you, today, right now, in this exact moment, can choose something different. You can stop obsessing over what was and start asking with true responsibility, what can I do today with who I am and what I have to be at peace? No one else can answer that for you. No one else has that power. And because of that, no one can take it from you either. The past does not change through suffering, but your present changes with every decision. Make this moment worth more than all the ones before, not because you erase your history, but because you choose not to let that history keep writing your now. And that is Stoic freedom. Sixth Stoic lesson: accepting the past is how you free yourself from it. There are chapters in your story you don't want to revisit, decisions you wish you could erase, past versions of yourself you'd rather never have been, and yet there they are, persistent, silent, waiting for the perfect moment to return as a memory, a regret, or a nightmare. They visit without warning, and they trap you in a loop. Guilt over what was a rejection of what you can no longer change. Many believe that accepting the past means surrendering, as if to accept were to justify, as if looking at a mistake with serenity meant you didn't care. But acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is one of the bravest things you can do, because acceptance demands truth. And speaking the truth about yourself, what you did or didn't do, hurts. It hurts more than any punishment, because the truth won't let you hide behind excuses, nor behind a polished image. It forces you to see yourself clearly, and that is never easy, but it's necessary, because what you don't accept rules you. What you deny controls you. What you reject becomes a shadow. Epictetus said it plainly: what happens is beyond your control, but how you accept it, that's up to you. And between what happened and what you choose to do with it, there lies a vast space, the space of inner freedom. Acceptance is that precise point where you stop fighting ghosts and start relating to reality, not to approve of it, but to stop dragging yourself through it. Accepting the past doesn't mean you agree with what happened. It means you acknowledge that it happened, and that since it happened, it can't be changed. But it can be understood, processed, and transformed. Many think that accepting the past is giving up, but it's actually the opposite. Those who refuse to accept it are the ones still chained to it, fighting battles they can't win, running from a story that is already theirs. And the more they resist, the more trapped they become. Seneca taught that the wise person makes peace with reality, not because reality is perfect, but because resisting it only amplifies the suffering. You can keep denying it all. You can keep saying, I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have said that. I should have done more. But it's done. It's over. And your only real option is to learn how to live with it, without letting it destroy you. Accepting the past is not easy. It means facing your shadow, admitting you weren't as wise as you thought, that you were selfish or afraid or impulsive. It means letting go of the illusion that you were always in control. But only from that level of honesty does something new begin. Acceptance is the fertile soil of transformation. What you don't accept, you can't work on. What you hide, you can't heal. To accept the past is to stop punishing yourself. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you've realized that punishment doesn't build anything. In the end, acceptance is an act of self-love. It's saying to yourself, I'm not perfect, I've failed, but I deserve the chance to do things differently from now on. When you accept, you stop running. And when you stop running, you reclaim your energy. Energy you once wasted on avoiding, hiding, denying. Energy you can now invest in repairing, building, and growing. Marcus Aurelius accepted each day as if it were his last. He didn't live waiting for a different past. He lived with what he had. And with that, he built. He didn't dwell on what never was. He focused on what still could be. And you can do the same. You can stop looking back with hatred and start looking inward with honesty, not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Acceptance is not forgetting. It's not erasing. Acceptance is recognizing that you can't change what happened, but you can decide what place it holds in your life from today forward. Will it be a chain or a memory that taught you something valuable? You get to choose, because that's your only real freedom regarding the past, to decide how you interpret it, to decide what you do with it, to decide whether it becomes a burden or a foundation. To accept the past is to stop fighting the impossible, so you can begin living with what is within your hands, your present decision. And that is not weakness, that is Stoic wisdom. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to release the weight that no longer lets you move forward. Subscribe and comment. I choose to free myself from guilt, to reaffirm your commitment to a lighter, more conscious and courageous life. This is just the first step toward a way of being guided by compassion and temperance. By the 9th lesson, you'll discover an essential truth that could transform your relationship with yourself. Don't miss it. It could be the beginning of your real freedom. 7th Stoic lesson: forgive yourself. No one else can do it for you. You wait for someone to come and tell you it's okay, that it's over, that they understand, that they forgive you, that everything is clean again, as if you never messed up. You wait for external absolution, a phrase, a look, a sign, something that will finally release you from the silent guilt you carry inside. But sometimes it never comes. Sometimes the other person is gone. Sometimes they don't want to forgive. And many times, even when they do, it's not enough, because the real judgment doesn't come from them, it comes from you. And if you don't forgive yourself, it doesn't matter how many others try. The hardest kind of forgiveness is the one you owe yourself, because you can't lie to yourself. You can't hide. You know the details. You know what you said, what you kept silent, what you did when no one was watching. And that's why carrying guilt feels fair. It feels honorable, as if by suffering enough you could make things right. But suffering is not the same as repairing, and blaming yourself is not the same as learning. Stoics never praised emotional punishment as a virtue. They praised transformation. They encouraged the calm recognition of a mistake and the immediate action to correct it. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, held himself accountable, not to demean himself, but to elevate himself. He knew forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, but about stopping the cycle of self-punishment over what couldn't be changed. And you, how many times have you asked others for forgiveness without granting yourself the one that truly matters? The one you keep denying, the one that doesn't depend on conditions, the one that doesn't expect everything to be perfect again, the one that simply recognizes you did the best you could, with the level of awareness, maturity, or pain you had in that moment. Yes, you could have done better, and now you know that, but back then, you didn't, or you couldn't see it, or you weren't ready to act differently. That doesn't make you less human. It makes you real. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean justifying. It means understanding, not to repeat the mistake, but to finally set yourself free, because as long as you don't, a part of your life remains frozen. Even if you work, love, speak, a part of you is still stuck in that moment, still waiting for something only you can give, an internal second chance. Epictetus put it bluntly, it's not the past that makes us suffer, but our opinion of it. And if your opinion of yourself is poisoned, no external gesture will ever fully heal you. Many think forgiveness is something you earn, but the deepest kind of forgiveness isn't earned, it's granted. Because you realize hating yourself doesn't help, it doesn't build, it doesn't transform, it only silently destroys the best parts of you. And you know it, you feel it. That knot in your chest isn't divine punishment. It's the result of not having embraced yourself when you needed it most, when you fell hardest, when you hurt the most, when you most deserved compassion. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, but it lets you put the whip down. It lets you walk forward with your head up, without lying to yourself. It lets you speak your story without shame. It lets you look in the mirror without contempt. And from there, you can begin to rebuild, with calm, with respect, with humanity. Don't wait for someone else to give that to you, because they might never do it. And even if they do, it won't fill the emptiness you're holding. Some things no one else can do for you. This is one of them. To forgive yourself is to look yourself in the eyes and say, I failed, yes, but I deserve a new way of living. It's to stop chasing witnesses to prove you're good and to start showing it through your actions, your decisions, your presence. Self-forgiveness isn't weakness, it's maturity, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that the path to virtue isn't a straight line, and only those who learn to rise again, without hatred, without shame, without the emotional stone heavier than any external judgment, can truly keep walking. Today, you can start putting that weight down. Today, you can choose to speak to yourself with less harshness, not to justify, but to give yourself the chance to become the person you already know you're capable of being. Because if you've come this far, it's not because you've done everything right. It's because, despite everything, you still believe you can do it differently. And that is already an act of forgiveness in motion. 8th Stoic lesson: focus on repairing, not punishing yourself. There comes a moment when you realize punishment no longer helps, pain no longer teaches, guilt no longer transforms, and not because the mistake stopped mattering, but because continuing to suffer over it no longer creates anything new. It only wears you down. It only drowns you. It only distances you from what you could actually do with that pain. But when you've spent a long time believing you deserve to suffer, the idea of repairing feels weak. It feels insufficient. It even feels unfair. As if doing something good now couldn't make up for what you did wrong. As if punishment were more noble, more correct. And once again, you fall into the trap, confusing punishment with justice, believing that self-flagellation is the righteous path, when really it's just prolonging the emptiness. It's delaying your growth. It's keeping you stuck in a pain that no longer serves any purpose. The Stoics understood this difference well. They knew that perpetual punishment is not a path to wisdom, that hurting yourself over and over for the same thing is not a virtue. It's weakness in disguise. Virtue is action. It's doing something with what you've learned, repairing, restoring, healing. That is real transformation. Seneca said, "There is no merit in useless pain, only in the change born of understanding." So ask yourself, are you truly changing, or are you just repeating your punishment like a sacred ritual? Because repair is not forgetting. It's not pretending nothing happened. It's not avoiding guilt. It's redirecting it, channeling that energy into something useful, something that contributes, something that brings relief. Repair is acknowledging the impact of your actions and choosing to do something about it, not just for others, but for yourself, to regain your inner dignity, to rebuild trust in who you are. And no, you won't always be able to fix everything. Some things can't be undone. Some people are no longer here. Some relationships are broken. Some words can't be taken back. But that doesn't mean you can't act now with greater awareness, with more humility, with deeper compassion. Repair is not always visible. Sometimes it's silent, intimate. It might be choosing to treat with love what you once rejected, to listen to what you once ignored, to act with temperance where before there was impulse. Marcus Aurelius didn't speak of deserving pain. He spoke of practicing virtue, of using each day as a new opportunity to act with wisdom, regardless of what happened yesterday. And that's exactly what you can do too. You don't need to erase your story. You don't need to apologize 1,000 times. You need to commit to real change, not outwardly, but inwardly. Guilt tells you you're worthless. Repair tells you you still have value to give. And that difference changes everything. Ask yourself, who can you help today? Where can you act better than yesterday? With what words can you ease what you once hurt? With what silence can you now respect what you once invaded? And if you don't know where to begin, start with yourself. By treating yourself with the respect you lacked. By building habits that reflect the person you now choose to be. By breaking the patterns that already proved themselves toxic. Repair is not a single event. It's a daily decision, an attitude toward life, a quiet commitment to coherence. Epictetus said it clearly, we cannot change the past, but we can do what is right now. And that's all you need to begin. No external approval, no perfect conditions, just will. Because if you can transform that dark energy into virtuous action, you are repairing, and that is far more powerful than any punishment. Stop spending your days in self-punishment. Start investing them in service, in loving better, in acting differently. Because every step you take in that direction is a step away from guilt and toward peace. Repair is the language of a soul that has understood its mistake and refuses to stay stuck in it. And that is the language of someone who no longer wants to fall, but to rise with purpose. That is true Stoic wisdom in action. If this knowledge is helping you let go of guilt and treat yourself with more compassion, follow us and join this space dedicated to healing your mind, strengthening your spirit, and building a life free from unnecessary punishment. 9th Stoic lesson. You are not responsible for how others respond to your mistakes. You did what you could, with what you knew, with what you had at that time. You failed, yes, you acknowledge it, you apologized, you took responsibility, maybe you tried to make amends. Maybe you changed, And still it wasn't enough, not for the other person, not for the one who was hurt. They don't look at you the same. They don't respond the same. They don't let go, or simply, they don't want you around anymore, and you can't blame them. They have a right to their emotions, to their timing, to their way of healing, or not healing at all. And then another kind of pain appears, not the pain of having failed, but the pain of not being forgiven. The pain of doing the right thing now, and feeling like it's already too late. The pain of offering your new self and having it rejected. The pain of knowing that even if you gave everything to redeem yourself, that doesn't guarantee understanding or acceptance or being loved again, because not everyone is ready to see who you are now instead of who you once were. And that's where you must remember this Stoic lesson. You are not responsible for how others process your mistake. You are only responsible for what you do with it, for how you face it, for how you transform it, for how you choose to act today, even if yesterday still hurts. Epictetus put it simply, don't try to control what doesn't depend on you. And the other person's reaction does not depend on you. Their forgiveness, their acceptance, their gaze belong to them. They are inner processes within their own world. And even though they affect you, they are not yours to control. Yes, it can hurt to not be given a second chance. Yes, it can hurt when they don't see your change, when they treat you like you're still the same person, when they ignore all the effort you're making. But the Stoic knows that the value of a virtuous action lies not in external recognition, but in internal integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote to correct himself each day, not to please others, because he understood that other people's judgments are unstable, and the only conscience that needs peace is your own. You can do everything right from now on, and still be rejected, not because you don't deserve peace, but because the other person also carries wounds, and maybe they're not ready, maybe they never will be, and that, painful as it is, doesn't make you any less worthy. It doesn't invalidate your change. It doesn't erase your real commitment to becoming better. Some people need years to understand something, others a lifetime, and some never do. And if you base your peace on their reaction, you will never be free, because you'll be tied to external approval, to a forgiveness you don't control, to a validation that may never come. But this isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about understanding limits, knowing where your responsibility ends and where someone else's territory begins. You can extend your hand, but you can't make anyone take it. You can explain, but you can't force understanding. You can show who you are today, but you can't make someone forget who you were. And that's okay, because that's not your role. Your role is to keep acting with coherence, with temperance, with integrity. Your role is to turn mistake into virtue, past into learning, guilt into direction. The rest is not up to you. And the sooner you accept that, the freer you'll be to act from your center. Without anxiety, without needing to please, without that childish fear of not being loved. Stoic wisdom doesn't seek to control the world, but to master oneself. And mastery includes accepting that you won't always receive what you think you deserve. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not the love you lost. And still, you remain worthy, because your worth is not decided by someone else. It is defined by your will to act rightly, even when no one sees it, even when no one thanks you, even when no one returns. Many abandon their process of transformation because they don't get a response, because they feel it's not worth it without validation. But that thought is ego's trap. Virtue doesn't need an audience. It only needs conviction. Today you can let go of that need for forgiveness, for understanding, for someone to wash away your guilt from the outside. Today, you can understand that your process needs no witnesses. It only needs honesty. And if you know you are acting differently, and if you know you are committed to becoming better, then that is enough. Even if they don't see it, even if they don't want it, even if they never return. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here not to betray yourself again. And that internal loyalty, that is the highest form of redemption. 10th Stoic lesson: the past is not your destiny. It's easy to believe your story is already written, that what you did, what you allowed, what you suffered, has defined you forever. That you can't escape your decisions, your mistakes, the person you once were when you didn't know any better. There are moments when, no matter how hard you try to change, no matter how much you fight to evolve, some part of you keeps pointing a finger. You ruined it, and that can't be undone. And even if the world gave you a second chance, sometimes you don't give it to yourself. Because the past doesn't only live in the memories of others, it lives in your inner dialogue, in that voice that doesn't forgive. That reminds you, with cruel persistence, everything you did wrong, everything you weren't, everything you lost. But the Stoics didn't see the past as a chain. They saw it as a training ground, a place you can look at, but not live in. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: the past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, only the present is ours. And within that simple line is a door, a way out, an opportunity, because the present is the only ground where you can choose again, and that choice, however small it seems, is a declaration of freedom, a quiet rebellion against what once condemned you, a firm statement that what you did yesterday does not define what you do today. Your past may have been clumsy, painful, unconscious, but it doesn't have to be a life sentence. Yes, it's a part of you. Yes, it shaped you, but it didn't trap you, unless you choose to stay in that prison. Guilt often chains you to the past, as if it were a debt that never ends. But debts aren't paid through repeated suffering. They're paid by acting differently, by showing through present actions that you are no longer who you were, that you've understood, that you've grown, that you no longer walk through life with your eyes closed. Seneca said, "No wind is favorable to the one who doesn't know which port they're sailing to." And if you're only looking backward, you miss the harbor, you miss the direction, you miss the chance to build something new, because Stoicism is this: an invitation to choose your life each day, to not be a prisoner of old narratives, to take the reins of your soul with will, logic, and virtue. Maybe you can't undo the harm you caused, maybe you can't recover what you lost, but you can honor that loss by living more consciously. You can use that pain as a lesson that transforms you. You can take each scar and turn it into a symbol of growth, not of punishment. Your past was a teacher. Harsh, yes. Unforgiving, maybe. But it was necessary to open your eyes. And now that you see more clearly, don't waste that vision by walking back into the dark. Don't use your growth as a whip. Use it as a guide. Epictetus, born a slave and a philosopher by choice, never let his past define him. He didn't allow chains to steal his inner freedom, and in his example lies proof. It doesn't matter who you were. What matters is who you choose to be now. You can be free. But that freedom begins when you stop saying, "I am what I did," and start saying, "I am what I choose." Because today's choice is your greatest power. And that choice can lead to virtue, to forgiveness, to a fuller life. Even if the past was dark, don't wait for the world to erase your mistakes. Don't wait for others to save you. Don't wait to feel perfect before moving forward. Start with what you have, with who you are now, and honor each step like it's your first. Because it is. A Stoic is not defined by what happened to them. They're defined by how they respond. And if your response to the past is coherence, discipline, kindness, then you are building a new destiny, one that is born from within you, not from what you did, not from what you lost, but from what you now understand. Your destiny isn't written in your mistakes, it's written in your choices. And each day is a blank page. Today you can write a different story, one where the protagonist isn't guilt, but courage, where the driving force isn't regret, but awareness, where the ending isn't punishment, but peace. And that, dear listener, is in your hands. Now, here, present. Your past is not your destiny. Your decision today is. No one teaches us what to do with guilt. We're taught to feel it, to carry it, to obey it, but not to understand it. Guilt becomes an intimate ghost that haunts our nights, that disrupts moments of calm, that whispers relentlessly, "You weren't enough." And you believe it, because it hurts. And at some point, pain felt like justice. You thought, if it hurts, maybe I deserve it, and if I deserve it, I must not let it go. But that's not justice. That's self-erasure. And Stoicism does not seek to destroy you from within. It seeks to temper you, to refine you, to raise you up. You're not here to wallow in your past like mud. You're here to turn it into foundation. You weren't born to endlessly flog yourself over old decisions. You're here to awaken, and awakening hurts, because it forces you to see with new eyes everything you were. And in doing so, you confront yourself, but you also open up to the possibility of no longer being a slave to what you can't change. Guilt is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a deep journey of self-awareness and transformation. A Stoic does not deny the pain they caused or the shame they felt, but they also do not chain themselves to it. They learn, they adjust, and above all, they move forward. Today might be the first day you stop demanding perfection from yourself and start demanding coherence. The day you let go of the idea that you deserve to suffer and embrace the idea that you deserve to heal, not because of what you did, but because of what you're willing to build from now on. Let me be clear, you are more than your guilt. You are more than your mistakes. You are more than that voice that keeps replaying what you didn't do right. And if you've made it this far, if you've listened with an open heart, if something inside you has stirred, then it means you no longer want to live asleep, that something in you craves redemption, not from someone else's hands, but from your own consciousness. True forgiveness begins within, and it's not about forgetting. It's about walking with memory, without dragging it like a cross. From this Stoic community, we remind you, you are not alone. We've all made mistakes. We've all felt guilt. And here, we don't come to judge. We come to accompany each other through transformation, because what truly makes you free is not being forgiven, but no longer needing it in order to live with dignity. Maybe no one can give back what you lost, but you can give yourself back, your integrity, your composure, your strength. Today, you can look in the mirror without lowering your gaze and say from the depths of your soul, I failed, I've learned, and I don't need to keep punishing myself to prove it. This is your opportunity to not repeat your story, to walk forward without fear, to build a life that honors your evolution, not one that punishes your past. If this Stoic session resonated with you, we invite you to become an active part of this community. Follow us, share your path. Don't lock yourself in silence again. Here, we speak of pain, so it stops hurting alone. And if you want to leave your mark today, write in the comments, I choose to release guilt. I don't need to punish myself to change. Do it as a declaration, as a ritual, as a beginning, because you are not what you did. You are what you do with what you did. And what you're doing now is wisdom in action, is freedom in motion, is courage. Now, yes, take a deep breath and walk with yourself, not as someone who judges, but as someone who honors. Subscribe if this message aligns with your values and your desire to live with Stoic wisdom. Your voice matters here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our shared identity as a community of awakened minds. The most meaningful comment will be pinned as a banner of this movement. A community that doesn't run from pain, but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. Joining this Stoic community is not about adding noise. It's about building the kind of inner fortress no one can shake. Follow us if you never want to miss another Stoic truth. Remember, every decision shapes your character. In the pinned comment, you'll find 2 paths, and each exists for a reason. Some choices seem small, but they change everything. If something shifted inside you after hearing this, don't ignore it. Subscribing isn't just a click. It's a choice to no longer live asleep, to walk with awareness, with courage, with purpose. And if you choose to support this space as a member, you're not giving, you're planting. Thanks to you, this flame stays alive. Your presence helps us keep sharing wisdom in a noisy world, building together a community of awake, strong, and free souls. Choose with intention. Everything you need is here, because your growth can't wait. We'll see you in our next session at Stoicism for Winners, where we'll keep exploring the riches of ancient wisdom in modern life. Until then, remember, you are the sole master of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being unbreakable,